We are back, another Extra Bases with Bristol and Booth. Jeremy, right off the bat, I want to amend what I said last week about Tony La Russa and the fact that that arrogance is probably needed to run a big league clubhouse. I think a quiet arrogance is probably what you need, the inner arrogance. You don't need that outward stuff, because I was thinking about this after I was listening and editing the podcast. And I said to myself, did I really say that? Because that's not what I meant. What I meant was you have to have a confidence to basically control the room. You don't need the arrogant stuff. So I just wanted to make that clear. It's been kind of eating at me since we taped that podcast.
Well, first of all, don't let it eat at you. Second of all, yeah, I know what you meant. I don't think arrogance is the word you were looking for, but I knew what you meant. What you mean is, he's got to be the alpha in the room. That's what he is. But if you're an alpha male in Major League Baseball, it's a room full of alpha males at the same time, right? So it's how do you become the alpha in the alpha? How do you command that respect? Tony had, at the time we taped the last one, Tony had some work to do with his clubhouse on how he handled things in the media. And Mercedes had some work to do with his teammates and some work to do with his manager for disobeying. And the Twins had some work to do just in general, because they had no business starting any of that by putting a position player on the mound and then getting mad because the other team decided to hit a home run. They hit some. That's ridiculous. So, Rocco Baldelli and Tony La Russa both should know better. But again, this is what happens, Jason. All the stuff we're apologizing and trying to rationalize and figure out, all that stuff happens because we're not playing the game right. And if we start playing the game right and things change, it doesn't need to be football. It's not WWE. It's not UFC. It's not the NBA. It's not hockey. It's not the MLS. It's not pick a sport. It's not track and field. It's not beach volleyball. It's baseball. It's baseball. And then baseball is uniquely its own, like the other sports are uniquely theirs too. And we just got the wrong people talking about it, meaning the wrong people telling the right people what to do.
Also interesting this week was Mickey Callaway, Angels pitching coach, of course accused by multiple women of sexual harassment and mistreatment, placed on the ineligible list, banning him essentially from Major League Baseball through at least 2022. He's also been fired by the Angels. That is a very, I think, appropriate response by Major League Baseball. But yeah, Major League Baseball really, really drawing a line in the sand like it should.
My question comes into play in how the organizations that he worked for handled it when they found out. That's where I'm at. It's not you're not talking about, look, and this is going to sound really callous, but I have to say it this way so people can understand the distinction. Mickey Callaway has been canceled. Okay. I'm using that word for a reason. He's been canceled. Okay. He's no longer part of the Angels organization. He'll never work in baseball again, much like Jared Porter and some other people have committed these similar infractions, and rightfully so. This is the type of thing that ends your career. Multiple infractions, trying to get around it, being dishonest about it, that ends your career. This isn't the same as two people having a consensual encounter. This isn't the same as two people, as somebody doing something that somebody else doesn't like. This is like real, this is really bad stuff. This is bad stuff. This is offensive and intrusive and frustrating and sad and all a million different emotions and adjectives you can throw at it for the people that are involved in it. Mickey Callaway's family, Mickey himself. Obviously, no one feels sorry for Mickey at this point, and they shouldn't. But the women he was doing this with, or to, the problems. That's not good. My question comes back to the culture in baseball, and it comes back to the organizations that knew about it and did nothing, and that is the Cleveland Indians, who were probably really glad to get rid of him, actually, when he went to the Mets. And the New York Mets, who, and I'm going to say this to be careful just for distinction. We're not talking about the scouts or the scout director or the player development department. We're not talking about people we're talking about the people that represent the logo at the highest level making the decisions. Sandy Alderson and company that knew about this and basically saying, who cares? And that's what they did. There's no way around that. And so to me, Mickey Callaway is another casualty of a systemic problem of inappropriate behavior and discrimination. I'm not going to look at this as this is a male-female sexual harassment, sexual advancement case. But the bigger problem in baseball is discrimination. Women who were mistreated in pretty horrendous ways were not listened to. They were swept under the rug and told to be quiet, told it wasn't that big a deal. That's discrimination. That's discriminating against the women and their rights to have a fair, easy place to work that's healthy and comfortable, and to be around these type of environments. And Major League Baseball has to end the discrimination in their thought processes across all levels. And nothing's going to change until they do that.
I'm always interested in people with this kind of situation, how they're able to get jobs and get promotions. Like, it just amazes me that this stuff doesn't catch up sooner, I guess, is the phrasing I'd like to use. But I imagine it depends on many times who you're speaking to as references. I would guess.
You've got to, this some people are going to get mad at me for saying what I'm about to say. And Jason, let me know if you come up with another time that mattered. Okay. I'm going to say what I have to say about this, because this is something to me that I've experienced discrimination in this game. I didn't deserve. It's a sore spot for me. You have the same people that are controlling the microphone of the things we talked about with La Russa and these not the unwritten rules, but pitchers pitching in. Same people making this decision. They're all from the same area, meaning they're all from the same type of education, same type of background, same school of thought. Different people, the similarities are all these different areas. Okay, this is like a running joke to them. It's like the frat boy mentality. And I'm not talking about any individual frat boy. I hate that I have to say that, but the frat boy mentality is we're going to do whatever we want to do. We're going to, do this and do that, and there's no consequences because someone's going to sweep under the rug and someone's going to take. That's the frat boy mentality. You have a bunch of guys that are running these organizations now who have something to prove to everybody else who was like the prom king, to the people who were the stars on campus, right? These guys are out there to prove it to the people because they couldn't do it, prove something against people that could. And this behavior is okay. This is their moment. This is their entitlement. Now, again, I'm not singling out any one person when I'm saying that. I'm talking about general school of thought. Otherwise, in no circumstances this stuff get tolerated. So again, until these people are kind of purged from the game here, we're going to talk about all these different things every week, where you and me are going to have a lot of fun because there's a million things to talk about. We can get Devitt Moore on the phone. I mean, we can find different ways to do all this stuff, to talk about the Seattle Mariners and Kevin Mather and how the stuff he said about Kellenic and the stuff he said about their fan base. I mean, are you kidding me? These are people that are running organizations. Like, what are we doing? Until that school of thought is gone, we're going to deal with this, for quite some time.
Here's an interesting school of thought. I'm wondering if the Houston Astros will now have a leg up on a lot of different major league franchises and clubs when it comes to signing minor league free agents. And here's why. Jeremy, I piqued his interest. Jeremy gave kind of the raised eyebrow, like, what are you talking about? Dusty Baker brought up something very interesting the other day when discussing the demotion of Robel Garcia to AAA Sugarland. And certainly one of the things that Garcia brought up was, okay, where am I going? How far is it? And Dusty mentioned, listen, man, it's right down the road. It's 20 miles away. And from a player perspective, and you've dealt with this, anybody who's played the game has dealt with this. It's like one of the worst things that a player can go through, right? When you get demoted, promoted. I mean, promoted is great, but okay, what am I going to do with all the stuff that I have? Who's going to take my apartment? Basically, Robel Garcia can now live in the same place he has in the Houston area and still get to Sugarland. and just a burden has really been lifted off a lot of these guys on that AAA to the major league shuffle, these 4A guys, and I'm wondering if the Astros could leverage this a little bit and maybe get guys that, if there's certainly you've got to pay them the same amount, money. You got to pay them a competitive rate or salary. But I'm wondering, we get that tie goes to the runner thing. I'm wondering now if this Sugar Land being so close to Houston, yes, it's great for the front office guys and the scouts and coaches, and they can check out players. But from a player perspective, man, I gotta believe that is such a huge deal for these guys that they don't have to worry about all the other stuff when it comes to going up to the big leagues or going back down to AAA.
Well, the Astros AAA team is in the city of Houston. I mean, it's just leave it what it is. I mean, Sugar Land, by the way, and I've been in the city now, just almost a decade and a half. Sugar Land, I mean, that's all you need to know. The name is Sugar Land. Where am I going to go play? Sugar Land? That's what we're doing. So, you're in the city of Houston as a AAA baseball player. Where do I sign? I get to go to a major city, one of the largest cities in the country. My big league team is, an Uber ride away or a car ride away, and I get to live in Houston. Yep, sounds good. And as far as the Astros are concerned right now, not to put too fine a point on it, but they're not real good in the minors. There's not a whole lot going on down there from a prospect standpoint. There's pieces. There's not a prospect standpoint. So they're in a situation where if I'm a minor league free agent and I need a job, I'm calling Houston. I'm like, hey, you have a need? I'll sweep the floors in the clubhouse because you may need something in a week to help you win a game. You know what I mean? So that's I think you're right. I think it's an opportunity. Anytime somebody wants to come to the city of Houston, I recommend it. Obviously, I love it here. You love it here. We all love it here. It's Houston.
It was just interesting because, we've heard about the proximity, and obviously it's great for the coaches and the GM and the scouts and things like that. But and when I say coaches, I mean more just the communication because they're so close. And certainly the ability to recall a player on a moment's notice is huge. But I guess I just never really realized or thought of it from the player perspective when Dusty brought that up, because here you've got a guy, first year in the organization. He's like, where are you sending me to? And most of these guys have, they've got to travel a few hundred miles, or, they don't have this luxury of having the place be a home base actually for two places, the big leagues and AAA. You must have had some miserable travel experiences when, switching teams or being traded in a league or something like that. I can only imagine what you've gone through.
It was crazy, but we never had anything quite like this 20 minutes away in a major city. I mean, I spent time in cities like Tri-City, Washington, Jackson, Tennessee, Mississippi, Worcester, Massachusetts, Bridgeport, Connecticut, Somerset County, Louisiana, Lafayette, Louisiana, Sonoma County. I mean, yes, I spent time in Sacramento, Vacaville. You spend time in towns like that. I mean, you're close enough to a big city, but that's not like being in Sugar Land. I mean, the Muppets, when they did this, they didn't do it for the players. They didn't do it for the players. They did it, for it was easy for them.
Nice, Jeremy. Nice.
Yeah.
I was wondering who was going to work that in.
But it worked out for the players, by default. I mean, not even Devin Moore can mess this one up.
Well, it's really, it goes without saying, it's the closest AAA major league situation in all of baseball. I just looked up because I was curious about Worcester and Boston, because Worcester is now the AAA team for the Red Sox, and that's about an hour. So I suppose you could probably do that.
45
right?
minutes. Sacramento is the Giants now, and that's an hour and a half, hour and 15.
Yeah, but that's That's tough, I think.
Oh man, it's an easy ride. It's just California traffic. Worcester, I played in Worcester when they were the Tornadoes before they became the
Woo Sox.
Blue Sox, And yeah, I mean, I lived in Boston at the time. I didn't live in Worcester. 40 minutes, that's not bad. Beautiful stadium, by the way, Polar Park. Beautiful stadium. They want $10,000 a day to rent that stadium out. And it's not even for the full day. It's like for 75 minutes. Like they want, I'm not kidding. Like I got it. We were going to put an event there and 10 grand a day.
Can you give me an idea of what is a little bit more reasonable in your mind? Half of that?
I'll put it to you this way. We had an event at Camelback Ranch with clubhouses and cages and backfields and main stadium. It was 10 grand. Announcer, scoreboard, it's 10 grand for the weekend.
Oh, wow.
Okay, it's a spring training complex. These guys are like, we want your left arm, a couple of toes, drop some of this stuff in, nope. It's like 10 grand a day. And then it was like, a window of like, I'm not kidding, like 85, like 90 minutes and you're gone.
Yeah, I'm sure. Like as that time expires, the guy's just about ready to lock the gate.
Oh yeah, I mean, and look, people up there, good people. I think they're just kind of operating under marching orders. But I called New Balance about that, and they were like, "I'm sorry, what was that?" I was like, right. They're like, that's a hard no. I knew it. Had to tell you. Had to bring it up. Knew it was a hard no.
It was interesting being at Minute Maid for the Dodgers and Astros. The stadium now 100% open. The first game on a Tuesday night. I think the announced attendance was about 35,000. Minute Maid holds 41-ish. It was basically 85% capacity. Not a lot of mask wearing. Maybe there's a lot of vaccinated people. I don't know. But it brought me back, man, to like normal. It felt like baseball again. It felt like the major league experience that we've so grown accustomed to. And I think the players, Trevor Bauer mentioned that on Wednesday after the Dodgers loss. That Tuesday night game, though, we had a pitcher's duel. Kershaw, Greinke, and then that Astros bullpen came in, man. And the whole time I was thinking, wow, they can't get if they get this type of bullpenning for the rest of the season, they are cooked, because against the best teams in baseball, this is not going to happen in the playoffs. Not going to happen.
It's funny. It was brought up today a couple different times. It's about something. It kind of ties into what you just said about the Dodgers and Astros. Our state here in Texas, first and foremost, has 0 COVID deaths right now. Right, that's been happening now for a week or so. 0 COVID deaths, maybe 10 days. So that means we're in a pretty good spot. Whether it's vaccinations, whether it's herd immunity, whether it's whatever it is, it's a combination of both. I talked to somebody today who doesn't have a vaccination but has the antibodies in his system. It's been injected into his body as kind of a test to see how that's going to work. To not get the vaccine. So, look, we're getting past this, and that's good for the state. It's good for the people. It's good for the game. It's good for a lot of things. It's good moments. These are good moments now. When it comes to the state of the game pitching wise, to hear we had a pitching duel or that hitters are having a hard time making contact, in other news, water is wet. Which was we're kind of in that mode right now. The people don't know what contact is. I had a major league scout, a pro scout who's done pretty much everything in the game, tell me, he was watching a complex game. Just kind of tie this back to what you're saying and saying he could go seriously, 3 innings without hearing hard contact on 2 fields. That's where we're at. Right. We had an event on Sunday up in Dallas at the Rangers Youth Academy, and I was talking to hitters about we're teaching people to throw up in the zone up here, but we're trying to swing up to get to that ball. Doesn't make sense. Okay. So pitchers duels are just kind of like it's Wednesday. Like that's what we call Wednesday. A no-hitter, that's Saturday morning. We got a no-hitter on Saturday morning. This week in no-hitters. Remember this week in baseball? It's this week in no-hitters. Okay. How many no-hitters we have this week, Johnny? 17. That's what we got right now.
I love, it's so funny you brought up This Week in Baseball. I was thinking about that the other day, about how much I missed that show. I loved that show when I was a kid. Oh,
the great show. What would Mel Allen say about all these strikeouts? Okay. So, I mean, you have that. So I get it. What you're saying, the Astros as a whole and the Dodgers as a whole, the bullpens, guys are getting worn out. They're getting worn out, running out there all the time because they're all pitching for intent. We talked about relievers are volatile. I didn't come up with that. I say it because it was part of a crew. And I tweeted out that. Remember a while ago, I tweeted out when you put about that crew. Let me tell you who that staff was. That was the Milwaukee Brewers scouting staff. Okay. That group, when you walked in the ballpark, you knew you were good and you knew you were going to beat the other scouts in the yard. No disrespect to them, but you could trust what guys said around the country. You could trust your partnership that you worked with. And so that came from that group. Relievers are volatile came from that group. That's the Jack Sorensics, the Bobby Hecks, the Ray Montgomerys, the Dan Nellums, the Josh Pulaskis and the Tim McIlvains and Joe McIlvain, who was with the Twins and then the Mariners. Like, that's where all that stuff comes from. That's the influence. Relievers are volatile because they're not meant to be consistent. That's not what they're for. They're meant to come in for a short period of time and get out. That's why they're in the bullpen.
Well, you also told me they're in the bullpen because they can't be starters.
Right, which starters are supposed to turn the lineup over and get outs and pitch and be consistent, right? Get deep into games. Relievers are supposed to take the ball for 1, maybe 2 innings tops. Why? Because you can't trust them. That's why. You can't trust them. That's like the guy trying to break into the bank and be like, hey, can I have the key to the safe? Can I just have the, I'm not going to do nothing. I'm not going to do it. Just let me have the combination of the safe. You go away. I'll hang out. I'll hang out here. You can't trust them, okay? And that's the point. So if you can't trust relievers, of course they're volatile. They explode. They talk funny. They do weird tricks in the bullpen. I mean, these guys are certifiable sometimes. Like, they don't know what the routines the relievers have. Used to be you wouldn't see your closer till the 7th inning. Now they're out there in the second because you never know when they're going to get used, right? But you couldn't see them until the 7th inning. So these guys, they're not meant to be consistent like that, And it ties into something else we talked about. So I had a guy pitched Cal State Fullerton, a friend of mine I've known since high school, asked me today, his son's a pitcher, one of his sons is a hitter, one's a pitcher. He said to me, he said, look, JB, I had a question. He said, I'm hearing now sprint work, going somewhere with this, sprint work for explosiveness and quickness. I said, well, yeah, position players would do that for explosiveness and quickness. He goes, well, what about for pitchers? And I said, I support that, explosiveness and quickness. He said, what about distance? I said, do both. Why? Endurance, longevity, measured breathing, self-control, ways to mental stability. Instead of a 15-second sprint, you got to do this for minutes at a time. What does that do? Sharpens focus, helps you breathe consistently, trains your body to go longer than a certain period of time. The more you do that, that's gone away. What else has gone away? As the trainers say, have taken that away. Well, starting pitching's gone away. Innings have gone away. Consistency's gone away. Focus has gone away. And it's all, let's go run and throw it as fast as we can. And if it hits 18 throw in the backstop, so what? It was 116 miles an hour. That's how we're doing stuff today. So, all this stuff is kind of tied together. And until the Muppets get out of the room, we're going to be doing this consistently.
We are running out of time. So let's bring out an old scouting report from Jeremy Booth's, I don't want to say your drawer because you don't keep them in drawers.
Well, I got them all piled down here on the shelf.
Do you?
Yeah, I got every year I've ever scouted, pro and amateur, every report right down there.
Oh, wow. All right, here's one. He was the first round pick in 2015, the 8th overall pick out of Vanderbilt, Carson Fulmer. Carson Fulmer, you wrote, closer in major league role, power arm with makeup to match, winner with no TEO power pitches. What's TEO? Is that just a typo?
Got to be a typo. Its system didn't pick it up.
Okay. Boy, it's those kinds of mistakes, Jeremy.
Yeah, we took him. I know. No.
Can pitch with an 80 fastball in his future role. Fast everything with deception. Works out of the strike zone. Difficulty repeating release point, but is effectively wild and gets hitters worried about both pitches at the same time, gets hitters to chase, and most of his strikeouts come with hitters swinging at motion, has to pitch to the plate at higher levels more, but his stuff will play. He is a winning competitor. You said round one, would take round one, must take round one. It's interesting, your body comparison. I doubt you remember this, was because it was 6 years ago.
Who was it?
Jesse Crane.
Ah, okay, that makes sense. Kid from Houston, pitched for the Twins and a couple of White Sox too, actually.
Major league role, closer. You saw him 6 games, a total of 35 innings. So, I mean, you had him in the first round, so you must have liked him, right?
You want to know what gives? Is this the what gives moment? So, number one, how's he done, Jason? How's Carson Fulmer done? Go ahead.
Well, for a guy that I think the team that drafted him had some very high hopes for, he has a career high, a career ERA over almost 7, 6.5. 1-loss record of 6-9 in 74 career games.
In AAA or in the big leagues?
Right now, it appears he is in AAA, or excuse me, the big leagues with the Reds.
So that makes sense for 2 reasons. Number one, Derek Johnson is the Reds pitching coach, and he was at Vandy. Now, not when Carson was there, but I think he actually might have been part of recruiting Carson, so that makes sense. Carson Fulmer, that's what's called a respect report. Now, I put him in the bullpen because – and so I'm really glad you picked this. Is why I wanted to go through it. So I put him in the bullpen because there was no chance on any universe or planet that he was going to start. Like none. Not this universe, not the one next to it, not the one 3 down. No chance he was going to start. He couldn't repeat his least point. Everything was fast. He was all over the map. He had got guys swinging at motion and chasing pitches out of the zone, which, by the way, is kind of what the big leagues look like today, right? So you're thinking that might be something that plays if guys just trying to yank everything and they're swinging at arm action, all right? But I did say he had to pitch back to the plate. I said that. The White Sox figured that out, tried to change him a little bit. You can't change that delivery. You can't change what he was doing and try to get him pitched back to the plate. And what happened was, as soon as guys stopped swinging at balls out of the strike zone and he got to pitch over the white, things got what we call ugly, okay? They got ugly, and guys were just teeing off on it and squaring it up, and that's the way it works because velocity with nothing to protect it doesn't bother anyone, all right? So that said, a lot of guys thought he could start. The White Sox don't take him 8 unless they think he can start. I know our draft room, the winning evaluators we had, thought that, ones that had seen him thought he could start. Devitt Moore was huge. He could start. This guy's a starter. He's a 1. Mac was like, it's awesome. We're going to go with it. And he said, and I was like, this guy's a reliever. And Mac was like, you don't know what you're doing. I'm like, okay. He's going in the first round. I get it. So I'll put him in the first round. Because you don't want people to – that's when you just put him in the first round. But you write a report that is like, all right, I get it. If everything clicks, you write it to his ceiling. This is where he's going to be. I respect what he's done in college, but I want nothing to do with this guy. Now, I believe in the makeup. I believe in the resiliency. But for what we were talking about, no chance. If you had asked me to write a report where I knew I had a shot at him, we didn't. He wasn't getting out of the first 10 picks, clearly, right? Where we had a shot at him, he's a 3rd rounder for me. But you can't do that because he's going to go in the first round. So you just write a report that says this is what it could be. Somebody's going to take him. I want him. So if I want him, I know I got to take him here. This is where it is. That's called a respect report. But you have no chance of getting this guy. None. Because he's not going to get to you. And if he does get to you, you have somebody else ahead of him.
It's interesting looking at his – what's that?
All kinds of politics in the draft room, Jason.
I've picked that up over the years from you.
Fatheads.
It's interesting, though, looking at his stats at Vanderbilt, other than his junior season, he walked a lot of guys. I mean, when you look at the walk to strikeout ratio, and we've seen the same thing thus far in the big leagues.
In fairness to Carson Fulmer, we've seen the same thing from everybody in the big leagues. Okay. But when it comes to the walks, that's a pretty clear indication. Vern Followell is a pro scouting director, I believe, still with Minnesota. He was definitely that when I was there. And we talked about the need for success at the lower levels, right? In college and high school, because he said, doesn't get any easier than here. It's not. The higher you climb, the tougher it gets, right? That's the point of the minor leagues and the system to get to the big leagues. So those type of things stand out. Somebody's walking a lot of hitters, either means they're way out of the zone or guys see the ball well. Fulmer was deceptive because he got guys swinging and missing a lot, but it also depended when you saw it. If you bought into the stuff, the walks and the strikeouts said reliever at a ceiling. Closer stuff, he could harness it, but he couldn't harness it because they changed delivery, everything flattened out.
Alex Bregman continues to be the class of that 2015 first round. No surprise, no surprise.
Alex Bregman's a very good player. What he's impressed me with, since he's had a couple of moments, and you know what I'm talking about when I say moments.
Yes.
Okay? Of immaturity, what he's impressed me with is the growth. He's impressed me with the way he's playing the game. He's impressed me with the way he's taking accountability for some of the things that have happened. He's impressed me with the resiliency. These are all things that Alex Bregman in high school had going for him. You know, this is a guy that people liked. He could hit, but nobody drafted him. Well, he was drafted, but nobody drafted him high enough to sign him. Nobody trusted it. Nobody wanted. Go ahead and go to LSU, Alex. Go to LSU. Go play there. He tried to catch to show value at one point. He played second base, played shortstop at LSU. He's come to the big leagues to show he can play shortstop. And Alex Bregman has even with the ability, has made himself into what he is as a baseball player. Okay? There's no taking that away. What's nice to see is that those moments have faded, that he's grown up, right? That he's grown up, and he's taking control of his actions and playing the game as well as he is in an environment that is not conducive to the success he's having. He deserves to have a pat on the back for that. It's tough. He probably didn't need it. He's probably at a point now where he doesn't need it anymore. But he deserves to be somebody to say, you know what? You're doing a good job beyond just the numbers. You're producing in a climate that isn't made for you to produce right now. You're producing with a city and a team that everybody wants to fail. And you're doing it with less than optimal manpower, right? When they can just kind of get around you after a certain point and get to somebody else, and you're still doing that. So it's not surprising to me he's the jewel of that class so far. If the Astros, Mike Elias and the propaganda machine try to go back and say they knew that he was going to be sitting there second in the 2015 draft, I want to go back and see those notes. I want to go back to 2014 and see the notes that Mike Elias wrote down and said, on June whatever, 2015, Alex Bregman's going to be there second in the country. Take him. I want to know. I want to see where that happened. I want to know what that was about, because then I want this guy to go with me somewhere and make me a lot of money. Like I will say nothing else about Mike Elias. If he can prove to me that in 2014, he said Alex Bregman will definitely be there with the second pick of the draft and we're taking him. And he's going to be a star. Prove it. Show me those notes and then I'll take it. Otherwise, good for Alex.
Maybe I should go through Astro Ball book, because I thought that there was a chapter on Alex, but
propaganda. Okay. And we talk, like, you introduced me to Ben, nice guy, Ben, nice guy.
Ben's great. Ultra talented.
Propaganda. It's a propaganda machine. If you doubt me, let's go back, look at that player development. Do you have that player development video somewhere? Hey, hi, we're the Baltimore Orioles. We have the best facilities in the Dominican. Don't you want to play for us? Like, you need to find that clip and play that. That's the same thing as I knew Alex Bregman was going to be there, the second pick of the country. Don't tell me I didn't know. It's 2009. I predicted it. Like, what are we doing? That didn't happen. It's how the draft fell. Show me that so I can go make some. I want to make some money. Let's go make some money. Show me that.
All right. Hey, by the way, Carson Fulmer, his WAR to this point minus 1.2 according to baseballreference.com.
He's losing the war. That's not a war. That's not a war. That's in the trenches taking fire.
All righty. All right. That's going to wrap up this edition of Extra Bases. For Jeremy, I'm Jason. As always, make sure you like and subscribe and let us know what you're thinking anywhere in the comments section, and we'll talk to you next time on Extra Bases.